Hey folks, Michael Mann from Michael Mann Security Services. Welcome to webinar number 30, the Mercaz HaRav attack, detection and response at the yeshiva school in Jerusalem. As we wait on our friends on these other pages to come on, I know our normal crew is here, and welcome, and thank you for joining us as always. For the new folks, if you want to get a hold of us, you can go to our website, michaelmannsecurityservice.com. From there, you can send us a message. You can call us at 615-606-1006. You can email Scott at scottm@michaelmansecurityservice.com, or you can get me at contact@michaelmansecurityservices.com. And you can always get us pretty quickly on Facebook or Instagram at Safe with Man. Okay? All right, let's talk about upcoming events, stuff we've already got going on. We got a lot before the end of October. We're pretty busy. Our As Is CPP study sessions continue. So if you know anything about that and you qualify and you want to jump in, send us a message. We've already gone through, I think we're on the 3rd. We'll be starting our 4th session. This is going to go through December, probably go to the first of the year. And the first of the year, we'll start a physical security professional certification review. So interested in that, just send us an email if you got questions. We'll tell you what that is, what it means. And you can go to the ASIS International website, look under certifications, and you'll see what we're talking about, CPP, PSP, and the PCI. Okay? All right, so coming up this Sunday, October 18th, you don't have to take Module 1 and 2. You just won't get the entire certification. But we have Module 3. This is a virtual instructor-led training event. Handgun carry teams or handgun carry are for church security teams or ministries. Again, that's this Sunday, the 18th, from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. CST. That is online. And so you'll need a handgun, no ammo, extra magazines, your carry gear, and then I'll have everything else. You're just going to watch me. If you join that event, what's going to happen is if you successfully complete it, so there's some performance standards on that VILT, and then you're going to have to take a written exam also. So you have to pass the written exam afterward. That's electronically processed to you when you finish the course. You'll get from the National Rifle Association, you'll get the concealed carry weapon certificate as long as you pass the written exam. If you're in Tennessee, that exceeds the state of Tennessee's requirements for the concealed carry or CCP permit. And then again, there's performance and written exams, or performance and written standards to pass that and get that certification. You'll get a certification from us. I will issue you a certificate from the NRA for the CCW course. And then, of course, if you're in Tennessee, I can issue that paperwork and walk you through the process, if you don't have it, of getting your concealed carry permit here in the state of Tennessee. 2 carry permits now, concealed carry and the enhanced. Okay, and then we start all over again with added content October 21st, or 25th, Sunday. CPS Module 1, Basic Security Operations. That's 4 hours. That's another online event. Price is a little bit more this time because now we've added content certifications. So on Module 1, we've added MOAB certification. That's Management of Aggressive Behavior. That by itself is over $100 if you were to go to that, to the basic public safety officers course, which is what we provide in this course. And so again, that starts the cycle over. So if you want the entire certification, October 25th is the first one, starts at Module 1. Go to Eventbrite, you can go to our website, it's listed on there. All right, some free stuff. You guys love the free stuff, right? So physical security for houses of worships, or worship and ministries. Tuesday, October 26th, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., Fellowship Bible Church in Brentwood, Tennessee. That's a live event. It's time to get off this Zoom stuff. We'll keep doing that. Get back into churches. Get back into fellowship. Get out in the world. All right? So it's time for us to start doing that. It's time for you to start doing it. So our first free seminar will be, again, October 27th in Brentwood Fellowship Bible Church. It is free, and it includes your dinner, beverages, snacks, and you get to hang out with me for 2 hours. I think Scott will be there too, maybe. Okay? We're going to talk about the ministry component of security, prevention strategies, certification. We're going to get into return on investment, all the stuff that you need to hear. I don't care if you've been doing this a while or not. You're going to learn something from this seminar. So join us in Brentwood on October 27th. That's a Tuesday evening. And again, we're going to feed you. We're going to let you have some soda and some water there for you, and you can fellowship and benchmark with other security teams. Okay? All right, so if you've been looking for your concealed carry permit, you want to do that in a nice environment. There's no bad language. There's nothing rough. It's what you're used to. So Friday, October the 30th at Fellowship, we have our Principles of Concealed Carry and Personal Defense. That requires no ammo. You're going to do a lot of manipulation, some exercises, learn about safety, safe storage, use of deadly force, etc., and you're going to be running your guns. It exceeds the requirements for the Tennessee CCP or Concealed Carry course. It is $20, plus it includes pizza and maybe some soda and maybe some brownies if I'm nice, okay? But again, get into a lot of stuff with the concealed carry. If you've been looking to get your CCP, or if you've got people at your church, like a small group or some community group that says, we want to do that, we want to pay $50, or we don't want to hear some guy use bad language or tell war stories all day, it's $20, and that's a Fellowship, folks. That is on October the 30th. You can register online through us through Eventbrite or through the webpage. All right, and our second free security seminar. Now, the first one's in Williamson County, I think, what did I say, the 27th? Yeah, 27th. On the 31st, we're going to be in Wilson County in Gladeville. That is Gladeville Baptist Church. That's from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. That is a free event. That includes breakfast, coffee, and snacks. We're covering the same topics. We're just going to be on the other side of Middle Tennessee, or the other side of Nashville. So we'll be out in Gladeville and Wilson County. If you're in Mount Juliet, Lebanon, Gladeville, whatever, that's there. Gladeville Baptist Church is a big church. They're hosting that for us. It's going to be a good event. We're going to have a big turnout, but again, we're providing food, water, beverages, hot coffee. Come out, join us. It's free. Come hungry. We're going to have plenty of food. We hope to see you there. Lots of benchmarking and fellowship with other security teams. All right, so this will be a quick one today. The reason why we continue to go over some of this response and detection stuff, the stuff that we teach and the stuff that we talk about, to tell you guys to learn about prevention, to prepare so you don't have to respond, because it's it's just very undesirable. We've shown you that around the world, the theme is the same. Everything that we talk about here and the case studies we talked about at American churches, it's everywhere. This is in Jerusalem. This happened in East Jerusalem back in 2008. So we're going to talk about it. I'm going to walk you through the process. I studied this when I was studying in Israel in 2011. Tell you some things that I was told there, and then you can find a lot about this or some stuff about this online. But it's about 30 minutes. This won't be a long one. We're going to talk about this attack on this yeshiva or this Orthodox Jewish school or college. We're going to talk about adversary tactics and response, and we're going to talk about considerations for your house of worship, ministry, or business when we talk about preparing for these events. Okay, so let's talk about the attack real quick. So March 6, 2008, a lone Palestinian gunman enters the yeshiva at about 20:30 hours or 8:30 p.m. Kills 8 students, wounds 11. There was response from emergency services, but that was delayed. There was an investigation about that afterward. And so Israel has a national police service, and then they have, I think they're like this private service that provides like ambulance, EMT, and paramedic services. And so there was some delay from the call, and you're going to see some of that on a video. You can actually hear a student here shortly that calling like their 911 system, asking to send people because there's a terrorist inside attacking students. The adversary is neutralized by an on-site responder and an off-site responder. It wasn't police. The police got there and didn't respond. So neutralized by an off-duty, at that time it was a lieutenant in the IDF who actually graduated from the yeshiva years before. He hears the gunfire, grabs a rifle, takes off running and responds. And then there was an armed student, an adult armed student inside the school that also responded, and they end up neutralizing the threat. Okay? So let's talk about it. The adversary. So kind of going back to 2008, this is as they're starting to put everything up in Israel. So this is a couple of years before the fence is completely done, the fence, and then parts of this, the wall, so the border around Israel, protect them against these attacks. So Alaa Abu Dian, 26 years old. He is reported to have been a religious Muslim. He's from a neighborhood in East Jerusalem. Now, depending on what report you read, some of the reports I read from here said that they deny that he actually worked as a driver or made like deliveries to the school. But when I was in Israel studying, and some of the things I studied was this attack, what we were told there was that he did. He was like a contractor, and he did do driver work or like deliveries to the school. So he was an insider threat. And so let's talk about Israeli border security first. So with Palestinians, they are allowed to come into Israel to work. Now, and this is about 2008, they were still required to do the same thing. It just wasn't as enhanced or as beefy at the time. But they are allowed to work, and they get these little cards or like visas to come in to work in Israel. And so they go through like checkpoints in their searches they go through. And so what happens, he goes through that process because he works there, he delivers there, and the night of the attack, he actually has an AK and a bunch of magazines and some other weapons, and he conceals those in a box. Now, he is, because he has because he works there, has worked there, done work there, he actually has knowledge of their physical protection system, or just basically their access, what they had, which makes him an insider threat. So by definition, that insider threat is someone that has knowledge of that access control and physical protection system of the facility we're trying to protect. So he is an insider. He knows something about the school. He is armed again with an AKM, which is just an enhanced Kalashnikov AK-47 7.62 by 39 rifle. He has several magazines, and he has some handguns. If you look at the slide there, you'll see that was the gear that he had with him. After the attack, after he's neutralized, they thought that he had a suicide vest, and some other folks were called in, but they found that he didn't have any explosives. It was just firearms, so just a strong arm assault. It was believed that the cause of this attack, I think a couple days before this, there was an Israeli response in Gaza, and there were like 126 Palestinians that were killed, and the family and some other folks believe that this was a response to that skirmish or that attack that occurred in Gaza several days before this attack. Okay, so that was the motivation, they believe. All right. So let's talk about the response. So this starts off about 8:30. The responders are 2 Israeli police officers. So again, they have a national police force. And so they ride on these little cars. And when I was there studying, I can't remember, I worked there off and on for about 2 years, from 2016 up to about 2018, 2019. They would kind of drive around these little cars, and the blue lights would be going all the time. And so they're police officers. They're armed like police officers are here. So those are 2 responders off-site. Then there's David Shapira. He is an off-duty at the time, an IDF lieutenant. Here's the shooting, grabs his rifle, his M16, he responds. And then there is Yitzhak Dadan, who is a longtime student inside the school, who actually is armed with a rifle also, and he responds. So those are the responders. So we've talked about the adversary, we've talked about the response. Here's the timeline of how this happened. Okay, 20:36 or 8:36 p.m., the first emergency call for assistance is received from a student inside the school, so it's a number of buildings. And I think on this next, on the next slide here, I've got that call. I want you to hear the call, and we'll go back to this slide.
To determine the drive and security the site of the Mann in for life excerpts of a student yeshiva student and an emergency operator.
והוא נכנס פנימה לתוך הבניין? לא שומע. תמתין לי, אתה לא מנתק לי עכשיו. תקשיב לי, כוחות בדרך אליכם, בסדר? כן. אתה יודע כמה נפגעים יש שם?
אני שמעתי צעקות.
אתה לא יודע מה קורה שם?
לא.
תמתין איתי על הקו, אל תנתק. איפה אתה נמצא כרגע?
All right, so at 20:36, that first call, so he comes in about 8:30, starts shooting at 20:36. The first call to emergency services is put out. At 20:37, that ambulance is dispatched, the first ambulance to start getting casualties. At 20:40, so adversary's been on target or in target for about 10 minutes. The first police unit arrives on scene. I'm going to go over this here shortly. No entry is made by the police. There are 2 police officers, a male officer and a female officer, that show up. They do not go in when they get there. 20:41, the first paramedics on scene reports that he sees 1 wounded, but there are multiple. They don't know that yet. At 20:42, Shapira enters the yeshiva. So the off-duty IDF officer at 20:42 runs in. I'm going to go over that in just a few minutes. He goes in to respond. 20:45, 2 police detectives arrive on the scene. And at about the same time, Dadan responds, and he shoots and kills the terrorist. There are multiple casualties declared at about 2051 and at 2057 MADA. So MADA is like this, if I remember correctly, I think it's like private. It's the ambulance service that provides like EMT and ambulance services to the state of Israel. Their operators report that the shooting is over and the paramedics can now enter the building because it is safe. Okay, so that's the timeline of the shooting. So he started at 2030. He's on site or in the target area for 15 minutes before he is neutralized. He kills 8 students and then wounds 11. The event. So here's what happens. So he's an insider. He knows how the school works. He's been on school before. He's either driven for the school or he delivers for the school. I've gotten 2 stories when I was in Israel. They said he actually delivered food or stuff to the school, and so some of the other accounts you read said he was a driver. So he enters the courtyard with that AKM or the rifle in the box, concealed with the ammunition and the other weapons. He once he gets in the courtyard, he opens the box up, takes out the rifle and kills 3 people or 3 students in the courtyard. He then enters the library, opens fire, kills 5, and then wounds 9. As this is happening, 17 other students escape into an adjacent classroom and barricade themselves inside. And that's, I think, where that call that you just listened to came from. The adversary is mobile inside the school for about 10 minutes before the police officers arrive on the scene. So there are 2 officers that arrive, a male officer and a female officer. Shapira then runs up, so right at about 8:42 or 20:42. The female officer's in the road and she's trying to stop a bus from coming up past the school where the scene is happening. The second police officer, he's kind of standing at the front of the building, and as he kind of looks around the courtyard, the terrorist actually sees him through a window, starts firing at him, so the police officer gets behind cover. At this time, Shapira runs up. He has his M16 or his rifle with him, and he asks the police officer why he's not responding. He says, well, we've called the counterterrorism units, stand by, we're going to wait till they get here. Shapira then this is, I don't read this in the account, this is what I was told there, grabs the police officer's hat, they wear hats, and he puts the hat on because he's in plain clothes, and so he knows he's going to be inside the building looking for the terrorist. He doesn't want other police officers in the military to shoot him, so he grabs the police officer's hat, throws it on, and runs in to actually neutralize the threat. About 3-4 minutes later, there at about 20-45 hours, the terrorist actually walks through a part of the building. The student that is also armed sees that about the same time Shapira sees it also, and then basically the adversary is ambushed, he's shot, and he's killed. The threat is neutralized. So what we've got, again, just kind of go over it. You've got an insider threat, so somebody that has knowledge of the physical protection system, and sounds like at some point had access to the school, goes in at 20:30. They're probably not surprised to see him. They probably recognize him, so they don't think anything about it. He's carrying a box, throws that box down, takes out the rifle, and starts killing students. He is on or inside that target area for 15 minutes. Just like in the cases we talked about, Sandy Hook Elementary, the churches we've talked about when people call 911, there's about a 6-minute delay from the time he gets in and starts killing before finally someone calls emergency service. There's this, what we call a moment of puzzlement, or this delay. So we talk about the limbic system. When it kicks in, it goes into freeze, fight, or flight. And so these poor kids, didn't understand what was happening at first. And at some point, when some of them are able to get away and lock themselves into a room, they do call the emergency services and they are notified. Again, he is inside and doing this for about 15 minutes until he is finally neutralized. Number one, by a student, a longtime student, grown student that was there with a rifle, and of course you had the IDF officer responded. The police officers did not go inside; they did not respond, and then at some point, other people start to show up after the threat's neutralized, and they go in and start processing the scene. So when we start to talk about, and again, you've heard me say this, but it's just another case study to continue to talk and think about. We must prevent the attacks. You must go through training, and you must have an understanding of how to prevent the attack. The response is always going to be undesirable, and like the police officers, we talked about these officers, I'll get into it, that happens here where they don't respond. So we don't know what the police are going to do, so we can't depend on them. So requirements for this successful attack, the adversary had them all. He had knowledge of the target. He was an insider. Number two, element of surprise. He surprised him, walked in the courtyard, had a box, threw the box down, took the rifle out, started killing students. Number 3, he was mobile. He was able to move around for 15 minutes without being stopped. Number 4, he had control of the situation because of the rifle and the multiple magazines with the ammunition in it. Early detection of adversary activity is key to preventing attacks. So not like, 5 minutes before, not when the attack, not an attack execution. We're talking about before. He was an insider threat. More than likely there was some sort of indication when he was there doing other work that something was going to happen at some point. So behavior threat or behavior-based threat detection training is necessary if you are protecting a person, a church, a building, any kind of ministry. Folks, you've got to have that training to understand what that is, what it looks like, how to process it, how to validate it. We do that for $60 a module. There's only 2 modules. We just had several churches in a synagogue just finished Module 1 this past Sunday. First week in November, they're going to be jumping on Module 2, so we hope to see them again November 1. Great group. But again, we offer that every month. It's pennies. It's like you can't afford to pass it up based on the training that you're going to get. And it's going to stop or prevent an attack. That's the design of it. And this is where it comes from, the majority of it, Israel. Again, the insider threat knowledge. Whoops, sorry, my thing's falling off here. Exceptions to low-risk groups. So remember, we talk about insider threat procedures. When we talk about groups, if you've been through our behavior-based detection training, we talk about grouping. So we talk about low-risk groups. There's that one exception. If you have information on a person, even if they're in that low-risk group, now the exception, they will be treated differently. Access is going to be done differently. So there are procedures around insiders when you get that information from the church or from your house of worship or synagogue or mosque or whatever. For us, most of the time that's like an order of protection, some other kind of order because there's a divorce, but it could be for some other reason. Requirements for a successful response, folks, whether you're on-site or off-site. 3 requirements for a successful response. Number 1, there's going to be timely communication to the responders if something's happening. That's the only way they're going to get there on time and stop it before somebody's in there for 15 minutes. The reason why it took an off-site responder was because, number 1, like always, there's always a delay. 6 minutes before someone was able to call because they're trying to run away from this terrorist. They finally get locked in a room, they're able to call. So 6 minutes, he's already been on scene for 6 minutes before someone can call and notify. So number 1, timely communication. That's impossible if you don't have some sort of behavior-based threat detection program at your ministry, at your business. That's impossible to do. There's always going to be a delay. Number 2, they must deploy. They got to get from point A to point B. If you only have off-site responders, those off-site responders have to come from outside. But even without a behavior threat-based detection program, even if you have responders on site and they're down at another part of the building, it's going to take them a few minutes to get there to stop. So, and especially if the adversary has those meets those 4 requirements, which are then they're shooting, it's going to take a few minutes to stop that adversary if your on-site response force, if they actually have the capability to neutralize that adversary. And number 3, of course, is neutralization, the ability to stop. Do they have the weapons? Do they have the training? Do they even have the motivation to do it if they hear gunfire? And if you've never been in combat or used deadly force, you probably don't know, okay? I guess the next best thing to do is force-on-force training. And so if you're not doing force-on-force training, structured force-on-force training, then that's probably the next best thing, obviously, if you don't have experience doing this. So something to think about when you start thinking about the requirements for a successful response. Know your law enforcement officers' expectations and their capabilities. Like, meet with them, ask them. Now, this is what they're going to tell you. We're going to run to the sound of gunfire. And you will see from all the case studies and all the examples we give you, that's not necessarily true. So I would talk to them if you don't have an on-site response. I would talk to them, invite them in for coffee, and like put sugar and something on like a piece of bread or whatever. They'll show up for it, especially if it's free. They'll show up if you tell them, okay, or ask them. Let them tell you what they expect, and then figure out what their capabilities are going to be if you don't have them on site, and if you don't have an on-site response that is actually an effective on-site response. All right. Police officers have not prevented houses of worship attacks, and they haven't even provided an effective response to any, which means by the time when they got there, they were able to prevent anybody from getting harmed. That's impossible. So in the last 20 years in these attacks on houses of worship, they haven't prevented any of those attacks, and they haven't provided an effective response. And I don't mean that they didn't respond. I mean they weren't able to get there fast enough to stop anybody from getting killed, because that's impossible. So know what their capabilities are, know what their expectations are, and then know your response capabilities. As a volunteer security team, what is a realistic expectation for them? I mean, really. There are very few churches that I deal with, and I deal with churches and talk to them from all over the country, actually from all over the world now, because of this and because of some other stuff that we're doing. And here's what I hear most of the time. Not enough people, not enough resources. The church, the synagogue, whoever doesn't want people to carry guns, or if they even have the resources, it's hard to get people into training to do it, especially now. So think about what's realistic and really what your capabilities are. And then if you have some standards, or if you have a training program, is it relevant? So does it meet the requirements for what you're doing? Is it relevant? Is it relevant to church security or ministry security? Number two, is it reliable? Which means, hey, is this something we can depend on? Is this going to work if we use it? And then, is it reasonable? Are the standards reasonable? Is this something that the security team can meet? Is it the standards? Can they hold up to that? Can they actually do it? And so if it doesn't meet those 3 R's, it's probably not going to work. Okay? All right. Again, we told you this was a quick one. Just another study to show you, not just in the U.S., but in places all over the world, we start talking about prevention is key. Number one, you got to prevent the attack from occurring. And number two, response is always going to be undesirable. Okay. Any questions, Scott? Anything?
No questions, but we have Vicky from Denver who was in
Vicky.
Jerusalem when this took place. So she just
Nice.
So you have to repeat that because I'm not.
Okay. Oh, so Vicky, who actually has gone through our behavior threat detection program, both 1 and 2, and she's just about to finish CPS. In fact, I should see her Sunday. She's going to be there with some other folks. She is a security director for a synagogue in Colorado, and she was in Jerusalem when this attack occurred. So I'm going to talk to her about that on Sunday as we go over pistol stuff virtually. Okay, any questions? Nothing? All right, folks, thank you for joining us. We have a whole lot of stuff coming up. Go to our website. If you're in Middle Tennessee, take advantage of these free seminars that are coming up. Get out of the house, get out of the church, get into another church, come visit, come fellowship, come eat free food, come hear something to learn about how you can prevent and how you can safeguard your church. I promise if you attend our events, I don't care who you are, you're going to learn something, and it's free. So get on the website, look at it, register so we know you're coming. You got to be registered to come. If you show up and you're not registered, we don't have it planned for you because we have to order food, we have to order beverages, so you've got to register to show up. Okay? We hate to say we're going to kick you out of the church if you're not registered, but if you're not registered, then we haven't planned for you to show up, and we're going to have enough food for you. Okay? So register. We've got one coming up on the 27th in Brentwood. We have a second one coming up on the 31st. I know it's Halloween, but I think Halloween's been canceled. And it's in the morning anyway. It's on Saturday morning. What's going on Saturday morning? Nothing. Okay? And that's going to be in Gladeville, but the one on the 27th will be in Brentwood. A lot of other training going on. Join us for that training. Get up there. If you got a question, send us an email. And as always, if you've got a group that wants to attend this training online, or if it's in person, let us know. And if it's a premier content, which means you're paying, then if you've got a group, then we provide group discounts. All right. Anything, Scott? Nothing? All right, folks. As always, thank you for joining us. We will see you next week. And remember, it's about prevention, not response.